Welcome to the Central Line George Little Rock Football Podcast, presented by the CLGLR Quarterback Club. We are recording live from the Rock River Brewery in downtown Rock Rapids. Now here are your hosts, Iowa High School Football Hall of Fame coach Toby Lorenzen, current offensive line coach Dwayne Postma, and the 2020 Class 2A Coach of the Year, Curtis Eben.
Welcome to our second episode of the Central Line George Little Rock podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Eben. This week our guests are going to be Trent Herda, Nick Van Berkum, Justin Overman, and Josh Bathke to review the 1999 football season. We're going to start a little trivia like we ended it with last week. Number one trivia, the smallest DT and probably the toughest DT to ever play at Central Line George Little Rock. And you name them. Nate Robinson.
The Nate Robinson.
We'll talk a lot about him a little bit more as we go along. The coaching staff for 1999. Yell them out, say them out loud. Obviously, we got Toby was head, Dwayne,
Keith Van Beek,
Keith Grant,
Coach Van Berkum,
Terry, and Greg Schmidt. Yep, that's the coaching staff from the 1999 staff. One short thing with that is Dan Cruz was also on, a little bit on that staff, and the fact that Friday nights he kept track of all the plays and was definitely part of that team. So last trivia question: our predicted record by the Northwest Iowa Review? Not good. Mm-hmm. 3-6. It was. That was actually by the Pigskin Preview. We were predicted for 3-6 that year, and by the Northwest Iowa Review, we were 4-5. If you go back on the record, so it's something that we look back on, and that a big deal, I guess.
You know, I had such a dumb brain back then, or I still do. I'm a pretty dumb guy. I didn't even believe it. I never bought into that we weren't going to win the district championship that year.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I read it. I was like, this is a joke.
I completely agree with you. Like, that was something that stuck out with me, and I think it stuck out with me because I knew we'd be better than that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind.
I think the Pigskin Preview is based on when I sent it back to them. If I didn't send it back to them on time, they'd give me a bad rating.
It's like how we grade papers, right?
Yeah.
Day late, a win off.
Yeah.
But that attitude is what separates winning programs from losing programs. Right there. Says it right there. Absolutely.
Get that right.
Never a thought in you guys' mind that something like that would happen.
One thing that we're going to talk a little bit about before we get into the Mount Rushmores this week, a couple things. Last week I forgot Jeff Cruz is also part of the 1996 roster, and he's sitting across from me. Just totally slipped my mind. It was an add-on. And then also a big thanks to Jeff. Jeff Cruz does all of our text behind it. He sets everything up, does a ton of research for the weekly shows, gets no credit. He's not part of the show. So a big thanks to Jeff and everything he does on the week-to-week basis to get this podcast to work. He's also one that distributes all the podcasts to Google, to Apple, to Spotify, everything else that goes on. So I know Coach Postman does not know one thing besides maybe YouTube now. But
now that I got 1 week of podcast experience, Coach Eben did that all on purpose last week, just so he could spend 2 minutes giving Jeff all the credit tonight. So, good job, Jeff.
Is Coach Postma going to get the gummy ad reads? The gummy reads? 3G, right? Is that was?
He's just getting cocky because he finally doesn't have a flip phone.
I'm learning the new one.
Keep moving on here. We're gonna talk about the Mount Rushmore, and that was something that was brought up last week, and I talked to Tobe and Dwayne a little bit about it. We're gonna start off with the Mount Rushmore. We're gonna select some positions throughout time. We're gonna start with the fullback position this week. We're gonna do fullback and tight ends this week. So start with the fullbacks. Toby, I'll let Dwayne go first on the fullbacks. And who he's got listed for the Mount Rushmore fullbacks. We're only doing from 1990 when we started our sharing agreement to current day.
That's probably good because I would have had myself as number one. Back in the old days. First of all, now being as I got the floor, hey, guest speakers tonight, guests, we are amongst coaching royalty. My gosh. Hall of Famer Toby Lorenzen, Coach of the Year Curtis Eben. My gosh. Wow, what a deal. And as long as we're acknowledging things from last week, I forgot with my podcast inexperience last week that we had 4 of our starting 5 offensive linemen in attendance last week, and 2 of them are back again this week. B.J. Van Briesen, John Denikus, Mike Reemsma, and Travis Drakey were all here last week, and Jason Dibburn was missing, so shout out to them guys. I've had people ask me for years and years now, who's the best, who's this, who's that, and I can go all the way back, but we're not doing that. This is cool. My Mount Rushmore, which means 4, in the fullback position, this is difficult stuff to do. It really is. You got to look at the individual. You got to look at, particularly as a fullback, you got to look who's in front of them, and that makes an obvious big difference. But my 4 would be R.J. Meyer, Nick the Bull Kroll, and I'm pretty sure Nick's listening tonight. I got a shout out from Coach Ed Berkey this week. Ed Berkey and Nick Kroll live about 100 yards from each other. Can you imagine some of those conversations? Holy cow. So R.J. Meyer, Nick Kroll, and then I go with the Eben boys. Coach Eben himself, he technically played just 1 year at fullback. He played power back his junior year, and a lot of that was treated somewhat as a fullback. But the impact that he had as a fullback that his senior year, we'll talk a lot about that tonight. And his younger brother Scott even as a multi-year fullback. Some of my special mentions in this case, and this is the toughest part because we have had tremendous fullbacks over all these years. And what?
Nothing.
Jeremy Meyer. Jeremy Meyer has a special place in my heart as a fullback because his specialty was blocking. That's when we started to transform our game a little bit from fullback oriented to tailback, and that fullback had to be that our down kick out type of blocking. A lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. Pretty simple, but you still got to execute it. That fullback, he's got to be special on that kick out block. So Jeremy was one. Taryn Gertis, Jaron Wiersma. Way back in the beginning, Tim Jagger played really good fullback back in 90, 91 on that championship game, that runner-up team. Luke Roders in his time was a very good fullback. But my Mount Rushmore is R.J. the Bull, Coach Eben, and Scott Eben.
All right. I maybe won't take as long a time on that.
Well, I had to give my shout outs.
And recognize every fullback that ever played for Central.
I'm going to give an honor roll with each of my positions. But I'll make it a little quicker.
They won't all see you tomorrow, so you won't get mad. They won't all be mad at you tomorrow.
No, but they deserve the recognition.
I felt it's pretty easy, and you talk about how hard it is to do it. Curtis and I talk about it all the time. Jeff's there. Matt Deitch here. We talk about it a lot. And basically, mine are the same ones as yours. RJ, when I think of Mount Rushmore, you got to start with RJ Meyer and Nick Kroll, the same thing. The Bull filled in exactly the same way as you talked about it, and then Curtis. And then I was kind of holding off. Come up with anybody else? No, I couldn't come up with anybody else. Scott Eben. And it's funny how we have a brother pair on that, and they're brothers, but they're so different as far as their running abilities and their running styles, and we didn't ask a lot out of Curtis for a blocker. He ran the ball a lot. I don't know if he even could block. I don't know if we ever even asked him to block ever. But every once in a while he'd maybe just fake it and let Justin keep it a little bit.
Right.
But otherwise, no, those 4 guys pretty easy. And definitely Jeremy Meyer would be high on my list if I had to come up with another one. And every time I hear Jeremy Meyer, I always think. And we'll talk about him in 02, his pizza. That's what Coach Schmidt always called him, pizza, because his dad ran the pizza ranch. So,
and in that conversation sometimes, and we'll talk a lot about his brother tonight, Justin.
Oh yeah, for
played
sure.
a valuable role.
All right, we're going to move on to the tight end position. Again, if you're watching live on YouTube, you can leave leave a chat message into the live chat message down there. Discuss who you think should be the Mount Rushmore. Again, it's all in fun. We enjoy this. This is what we do every day as a coaching staff, and a lot of memories that go back. And if we're missing somebody, leave us a message. So we're going to move on to tight ends. This should be. We've had some good ones, and I can't wait to hear. Coach Postma's four tight ends. Coach, we're going to go a little quicker than the last one, so keep her moving.
How come I got to go first all the time? What's the deal with that?
Because you're the man.
All right. I'll set it. See, I can take longer because they're all going to agree with me anyway, so what the heck. Back in 91, Brent Benegay. Brent, honestly, Brent could catch the ball quite well, but it started back then with an incredible, actually a little before that, but we've had an amazing run of tight ends all the way to this year's current team. Kalen Meyer wasn't he's an H-back, as we call him in all this modern stuff, but Kalen Meyer was our tight end this year. And because tight end starts with what, Hinchy? What do you better be able to do to play tight end for us? You better be able to block, right? Right, Nick? You listening?
I'm listening. Yeah, I'm listening. Yes, block.
Okay. So for me, it starts with blocking. Brent Benegay is my first guy. Jeremy Clausen. Jeremy Clausen was the package. Jeremy was equally as good defensively as he was offensively. He was in just the stud category all the way around. Joel DeYoung. Joel DeYoung played incredibly physical tight end for us in his time as a blocker particularly. And the last one, this where it got really tough because there's 3 or 4 others that could have been right here with it. But I went with Corey Kempema. He did a lot of things very well. A quick story about Corey Kempema. Corey Kempema was a gamer. He practiced bad. He stunk as a practicer. So he's in a battle. His junior year, is he a junior this? No, when he did,
he's
yeah,
gone now.
He's gone by now. But he couldn't win the job in practice. So we go over to our first game over at West Lyon. Him and remember Wookie, the big guy, David Moore. They're in a battle for a position. So I got it all set up. I pull them in, and you guys are going to rotate tonight, and then we're going to view the tape. We're going to make the decision. Okay? We get to West Lyon. Wookie goes in the first one because he's a year older, and I forget all about it. Kempema never steps on the field, never gets on the field. I realize it on the way home on the bus. It's like, oh my God, what did you do? He didn't even play. So I pull him in we're going into the locker room. I pull him off to the side in the restroom, and I got him in there. And I said, "How much did you play tonight?" "Oh, I didn't." And I said, "Well, there's a reason for that. Now we're covering butt here now, you know." And I told him, I said, "You got to earn it in practice. You didn't deserve a chance to play tonight. You come. I'm going to give you 1 week to earn that job, and you and Wookie are going to be. One of you is going to get the job full time this week." Corey Kempema never looked back from that point on. He went to practice that next week, and he made me look like the coach of the year. But it was all by accident, 100% accident. So Corey Kempema would be my fourth one. And just a few shout-outs, honorable mention, Brad Reipkema, Dan Vanderzee, and Sammy Halse right there. Hinchy's over here. Hinchy was one of them overachieving tight ends because he listened to his coach and he worked his butt off. And he was a good blocker. Good job, buddy.
All right, we're moving on to Tobe.
All right, I guess there's a reason why, we coached 29 years together, we always got along pretty well. It's because basically my guys are the same ones. Brent Benegay, I was an assistant when Brent Benegay played. He was one big, bad dude, and I tell you what, he looked way bigger than he was, too.
Yeah.
He could fill out a uniform, and he could do some damage. Jeremy Clausen, monster, stud. We've talked about him before. Joel DeYoung, and then Corey Kempema. I could spend a whole hour talking about Corey Kempema stories just like you. 3/4 of them are not allowed to be said amongst mixed crowd or young children or things like that too. But Corey had one of those. Corey never played any defense either, but he always made sure he got by Coach Schmidt at halftime for a little bit too, way back in the day. But Corey was unbelievable. One year we played Lamar's, and they had the Borchers kid who went to Iowa, and he was telling everybody how they were going to play on. He was going to be on TV and see ESPN. You're going to see him on ESPN, and we get done and we beat him, and I'm trying to get everybody off the field over to talk to us, and I can hear Corey yelling, "Hey, Mr. ESPN, how you doing over there, buddy?" And he letting her have it. So, very, very colorful character.
And they went back and forth on it, too.
Oh, yeah, very colorful character. Great guys. Again, same thing. Dan Vanderzee, Brad Reikema, you go right down the list. A lot of studs.
I think Brad's here tonight, too, right, Brad? Did I see you?
Pretty
Great
dang
job.
hard,
Yeah.
pretty dang hard. But those guys, those 4 guys we listed, unbelievable blockers, just unbelievable.
It all started with blocking for
Yep.
our system. That's all there's to it.
Yes.
That's the way it had to be.
Those are always fun to go back and look at some of the Mount Rushmore, something that we talk a lot about as coaching staff. And so we're going to move on to the 1999 season. A little bit of the season review. That year we were 11-2. The year I call it the year of the purple pants, if you guys know.
Those sucked.
You know what?
Invented the alternate uniform. Color rush was born from you.
Yeah. If I remember right, the first game, did we play Westland at home? We played them at home, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, these two come out with Trent and Curtis come out with all kinds of
God.
fancy socks on
That
and
was Spencer
stuff,
game, actually.
and they just get it stuffed in their face. man.
Spencer game we did that, I think.
I am so glad Kurt did it with me, or I'd been kicked off the team.
That's right.
So anyway, obviously we ended up Class 3A runner-ups that year. That year we had 19 returning Leonard winners, 5 returning starters from the 98 team. We're going to go through the roster here. I'm just going to say all the roster, the guys that are on the roster that year, and then we're going to keep going through it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it as we go through here. So number 4, Nick Crone, linebacker, junior. Trent Herda, corner, wide receiver, senior. Jeff Groen, DB, junior. Danny Schoeneman, kicker, linebacker, senior. Eric Clevinga was safety, senior. Justin Overman, safety, quarterback, junior. Jarrett Fluth, quarterback, sophomore. Jeremy Bogard, defensive back, senior. Casey Weirheim, wingback, junior. Tim Lamons, corner, senior. Andy Heidloff, running back, sophomore. Justin Meyer, running back, senior. Nick Snoocher, center. Corner, and he was a sophomore. Reed Kruger, fullback, senior. Reed Kroll, tight end, sophomore. He was actually a tight end linebacker. Brett Blumendahl, tight end, junior. Brandon Jerns, corner, and he was a sophomore. Matt Bathke, linebacker, junior. Matt Shar, DN, senior. Josh Bathke, linebacker, senior. Curtis Eben, fullback, linebacker, senior. Tim Sproke, center, junior. Brian Gronewig, tackle, junior. Nate Robinson, D-tackle, senior. Tom Clausen, D-tackle, senior. Derek DeGroat, tackle, junior. Josh Marcus, center, junior. Cliff Logan, tackle, sophomore. Justin Foster, guard, junior. Josh Cruz, guard, tackle, senior. Wade DeGroat, guard, junior. Philip Reeks, guard, tackle, and I believe he's also a long snapper, senior. Dustin Bosch, guard, sophomore. Sam Huff, guard, junior. Josh Drewish, tackle, sophomore. Wyatt Stubbe, DT, senior. David Nightingale, DN, junior. Brandon Cruz, DT, junior. Jeff Hassman, split end, tight end, senior. Tom Kruger, DN, junior. Brad Reikema, tight end, junior. Brad Vogel, tight end, split end, senior. Aaron Campbell, defensive tackle, junior. Nick Van Berkum, split end, tight end, senior. Tom Meester, defensive end, junior. That was our 1999 roster at that time. And so, again, a big roster to go through at that time. So, honestly, it was probably our senior class that put us into 3A throughout those years.
Was it really?
We had a big senior class, and George Lurack actually had a big senior class along with that. And then next year we went down to 2A, Justin Senior. So, But
When you look at this list, there's only about 5 guys that have their offensive position and defensive position listed. We had a ton of one-way players on this ball team.
We did.
We really did.
We also, and we'll talk about it as we go, but we also had a lot of one-year starters. Back in the day, there was a day where you had to work your butt off to start as a junior or a senior, and obviously we got a lot of talent right now, but there was a lot of one-year starters.
Yeah.
I always, thinking about this, I thought for our seniors, our JV season was really important for us because we didn't get to play as that group as juniors.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
honestly, we were playing without, one of our leaders. I
Yep.
thought it really brought us together, and we started learning those awkward ways to win these football games. All
exactly
those
right.
games were super close, and that's how we won these games as seniors. I think our JV year was really important to our
was.
senior year run.
That was.
Yeah, and I don't have our JV record. I should have went back and looked at it, to be honest, because at a freshman JV, I saw our freshman year, we end up a decent record. Our freshman
We were
year.
7-2 both times,
7-2.
Okay.
which is impressive because how many games did you win when you were in junior high?
Why'd you bring that up?
How many games? No, seriously, how many games did you win?
We didn't score a touchdown in
Yeah,
7th grade.
We scored 1 touchdown in junior high football.
Well, that's kind of a theme for
One
us, I think,
touchdown.
as we go out through tonight.
And we talk about that often as coaches. Some of these kids get a little discouraged when they don't have a lot of team success as they're younger and progress. We talk about it many times. We have had state finals teams like you guys who never won a game in junior high, and look what you end up doing. It's a pure progression. There's no question about it.
I think our freshman and sophomore year, we were like 2-7
Yeah.
each year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
So-
had talent, though. Like, when you look at that Northwest Star Review, and they gave us this poor record. I thought what we did when we were JV, but we also knew what you guys were doing behind us.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Tom Meester's coming. Like, they're not counting on this.
Yeah.
You got to remember Tom Meester till his junior year. I was like, I came back and didn't see him all summer, and I went, what happened to that guy? Because he went from like 125 pounds to 170.
Yeah. Incredible.
It was
That's
like,
right.
Oh, Meester grew up.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can talk about some of that stuff.
But
too, 'cause
again,
there is
once
some
again, our scout teams were
extremely.
really good because of one-way players and the rest of our roster. I always like to pick somebody out, but Phil Ricks, I always called him. I'm not sure how he pronounced it to this day, but he loved coming to practice every day. This is an important thing to mention for all these kids on this roster. They get to come and play football, and it's this way this year. They get to come and play football on that field every day against each other. And for those of you guys in here that have played, a lot of you in here, you can attest to this. Once we get through Hell Week, because it's called that for a purpose, but we have fun on that practice field because we get to play football every day. We get to coach you guys. You get to play football. You get to bang each other around, and we have our little games going on with each other all night long. Our all practice line. It's fun stuff, but it's a big reason why we have teams like this because of those scout teams, and we cannot ever forget that.
I asked Josh on the side here, but in 7th and 8th grade, actually Central Lyon and George Little Rock were not combined yet.
No,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
And so I don't know what year that started, to be honest, but
I don't even remember.
that was a big.
It was quite a number of years.
It's kind of nice as a freshman. All of a
guys
sudden, you
play
gained
together?
about 10 guys.
Okay, so
In
the
junior high.
And that was like
04 team.
2004, yeah.
Mitch Lupkus comes in as Mr. CLGLR historian, like he should always. But
That was the cardiac kid,
And we
the
didn't
04 guys.
We didn't play each other then.
no, we didn't. We
No,
never did.
no.
All right.
And that,
So it's like you're winless, we're winless. Unless we were that bad, I don't know.
We were not good.
Talking about injuries that year, I know Eric Clevenger broke his hand. Tim Lamons fought a MCL knee injury. Sam Huff, I believe, broke his hand too throughout that time.
Nick, did you have something wrong with you
then
during that
Nick-
game?
He claimed
Yeah. Whoa. Let's stop. Let's start here. I broke my elbow, but I'm telling you, I've used that story since this. So I remember I broke it before half, and Hank Grant kind of gave me the old program talk: "Are you hurt or you're injured?" kind of thing. And what are you going to say, right? So I went back in and I played the rest of the game with a broken elbow. But I tell you what, I've used that story since then at parties and other people, how tough I am that I played the whole game with a broken elbow.
Attaboy.
It's worked out. It's worked out to my advantage. But I remember we didn't find out it was broken until Tuesday, the following week, and my arm was black. It was puffed up and black.
I remember looking
and they
at
had like
it.
a bone sticking out. I was like, this looks pretty
It was
broken.
horrible. It was horrible. And I remember I went into Spanish class on Monday because I went to the hospital that night. They didn't know what was going on. And Tom Meester's like, I remember I went in and he's like, "Oh, you went in the hospital, you little girl." And he slapped my arm because no one knew it was broken. And I'm like, and then I had surgery, but it was kind of a bummer. But that was the Esterville game. And then I was then I was out the rest of the season. But yeah, but don't worry, I'm using this story a lot. So
Attaboy,
it's all good.
attaboy.
You were tough, Nick. You were tough.
I remember seeing it, and I was just like, oh, boy.
You know, we'll go through the starters on offense for the 1999 team. Left tackle was Wade DeGroat. Left guard was Sam Huff. Center was Josh Marcus. Right guard was Derek DeGroat. Right tackle was Josh Drewis. Tight ends was Brad Reichema.
Not a one of these was a senior.
Not so far, no.
And these were our starters.
Yep.
I believe Wade DeGroat had starting experience.
He started as a sophomore, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was it.
And then
Pretty amazing.
Jeff Hassman, Brad Vogel, and then obviously Nick up to the Sville game was the other tight end. And then Trent was the power back wide receiver. Curtis was the fullback. Justin Meyer and Andy Hadloff was tailback, and then obviously Justin Overman was quarterback. So, again, very young offensive team at that time, especially earlier on in the season.
I wanted to play Trent at tailback. We had planned on playing Trent at tailback, but we were a little short at the wideout position. And Trent's probably, without a doubt, one of the fastest players ever to play at Central Lyon, George Little Rock, and we just felt like that was the key we needed to do. And as we talked about games, I'm sure you remember a couple of those games. We don't toss him the ball down the field. We're in trouble in that game because, but it was huge, and that was a big change as far as my hat's off to Trent at that time because he tailback at Central Lyon. George Little Rock, you want to be tailback Central Lyon, George Little Rock, and he had to make the transition, and it was huge for our team at the time.
Yeah, at the time, I would definitely have to say that it was a decision that as a coaching staff, I don't know if even us players bought into as much as now you look back and you realize it was game changers. Like it literally won us, well for sure 2 games. They won us games, and there's multiple times we'll talk about as I go through games is that our pass game was actually better than I thought it was.
Yeah,
going back on the years.
I grew up with a rat tail because of Lance Bott, so I wanted to be the tailback. But so I was a little disappointed.
Yeah,
but it totally worked out, and it didn't take 5 receptions a game. It just took 1, and you could see people were getting out of the box.
Yeah,
and it meant everything.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
It definitely changed us.
Hey, Trent, you could roll that rat tail again, right? You're tenured, right? That wouldn't make a big deal, right?
Yeah, I could do
College
that.
would be
I get away
okay
with
with
that.
that. You're tenured, so don't worry about it.
So
Throw it again. I wanna see
it'd
it.
be party in the back, nothing in the front. That's the problem.
We'll move on to the defense. Tom Easter, Matt Shard, defensive ends. D tackles were Wyatt Stubbe, Nate Robinson. Linebackers, Curtis Sieben, Josh Bathke, Nick Crone, and Reed Kroll played a little bit. And then corners were Trent Herda and Tim Lamons. And the safeties were Eric Clevenga and Justin Overman. And so
Defense was our game.
Wow, we raved about '96 defense. This defense was wild.
Yeah. Honestly told, the more I
good.
thought about this, reading this and everything, this truly may have been the best defense since we came together. Not just these guys just kept making play after play. That front 4 was dominant as individuals and especially then as a group. But man, oh man, these guys played defense.
Well, besides these two, our safety was the biggest one Justin was the biggest
Yeah,
one on the defensive side of the
right.
ball there.
Yeah.
And I was watching tape. I always watch tape before these, and I'm watching tape. Did I find like the biggest shoulder pads in the United States to give you, or what? My God, your shoulder pads are like up to here. It's like,
I was just a big guy.
was
Yeah,
I,
you were.
Was
You
I
were.
hiding,
You were a
was
big
I hiding,
dude.
Was he hiding the lack of arms, or
Yeah,
what?
I had to look tough somehow. Let's throw a big rack on.
Josh
shoulder pads
Bathke
back
had the largest pads in the state of Iowa, I'm pretty sure.
And we weren't very big up front, but I'm telling you what, we had 4 dudes up there that could make the play at any time in any game, and they did. Whether it be a sack or a fumble recovery or a strip sack or a big tackle for loss, whatever. Matt Shar, Tommy Meester, Wyatt Stubbe, and Nate Robb were the deal. As good as it ever got, that I can ever recall, and that's a fact.
You know, Matt Shar had sprinter speed, obviously, on that 4x4 team that won the state championship that year with those guys. Was able to run things down. Tommy Meester it said he had how many sacks he have? 7 sacks, something like that.
Yeah, he had a lot.
Well, yeah, that's not counting the 20-some times he threw the quarterback on the ground after the quarterback already got rid of the ball or whatever. And
I tell you what.
Well, he never knew if the guy had the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Schmitty always said that. He goes, the first one's on me when it came to that. And if you go back and Tom lit up quarterbacks.
Oh, my gosh.
Game after game. I mean, it was like picked
and
up.
Curtis, I only remember him getting called for it once, and that might have been at Missouri Valley his senior year. And Schmitty always said the first one's on him, so no butt chewing.
They got close against Lamar's calling him. They kept coming up to him.
Yeah,
and I'm defending him. I'm like, hey, this guy's name's Tom, not Tommy or Thomas, because he can't put all these letters together. He barely knows what's going on out there. Like, he didn't know who's got the ball. Listen to him.
Nate Robb. We didn't know what to do with Nate Robb. And these guys probably won't admit it, but playing Nate Robb was my idea. And we had a prototype to follow, and that being Ty Miller.
Tyrone, yep.
But Nate Robb was smaller yet. Pound for pound, he's probably just as tough. But he was pissed when we gave him the news. You remember, Coach? He was pissed. And all I told him was, you want to sit on the bench, or do you want to be the talk of the state of Iowa, and 3A football is this little shit that nobody can block?
Yep.
And that's what he chose, and that's what it came down to. 130, what? What did he wrestle at, 135?
Senior year, yep.
Oh, just incredible stuff.
You go back and watch tape with that D-line, and it's absolutely incredible how much they dominated.
It was.
And it was crazy. You got Tom and Matt both were Schmitty prototypes, and the fact of discipline, stay home, take care of business. Mm-hmm. And you had Wyatt that was just a scrapper. Nate Robb, there's nobody that could block Nate Robb. I don't care. There isn't one person that could block Nate Robb, especially getting off the ball. They may have Nate Robb would beat him off the ball, and the next time they may beat him, but then he'd just go around you. And it was just game after game after game that just happened. And that's the fun part about it. There's so many plays that you go back and that. And, the bend but don't break Schmitty type of
big
defense was just exactly that. It was fun.
We might not get any. We might get some calls from Sioux County, because I believe you and Nate Robb and the boys went over to Sioux County a few times and caused a little trouble over there.
Yeah, they crossed the border. They proved my point from last week.
Even after football season, maybe a little bit. But, I don't want to know about it during the season. I don't know what happened. But, I
heard about him.
You think of those. You think of those four. You talk about our offensive line. Well, none of those offensive linemen are playing defense.
Nope.
They're going against the best D line in the state every day in practice. Why do you think they got better?
Yep. And what better for a young offensive line than a terrific defense to keep us in them games early in the season until we really started to come together and put it all together. Nothing better from my perspective than to have that great defense. Oh, and there was a pretty good linebacker back there with Josh and Nick. Yeah, he wasn't bad.
We're not done with Nate, though. We should do the Mount Rushmore, people you don't want to be in a pile with. Nate Robb. All four faces. You would hear some grunts and squeals out there and just look away.
There he sits over there with a big smile on his face.
That's why with Nate Robb, you always left a pile late, because you knew you were going to get a personal foul if you get rolled off early. So you laid there until the last possible moment. The guy coming up, his eye hurts.
Well, the worst part
might be have a bloody nose, a lip, something, but you know what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes there's friendly fire, though. He just messing with us.
That's when you're up. When you're up by a lot, then it was always friendly. Then you rolled off fast. You got to get out of there, because Nate Robb was going to hurt you next. So it didn't matter.
Actually, is Nate Robb there? Is he right now?
He is.
Hey, Nate Robb, I love you, but has anybody ever had to ride in front of him on a bus? He'll mess with you the whole damn ride there.
I actually twitch when I just come to Lyon County.
I love you, Nate. I love you, Nate.
I'm looking out for him all the time.
And even in practice, nobody wanted to tangle with that little turd, because he was an intimidating, tough dude. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it was quite the D.
That was one thing that I was watching film before we came here, kind of like you told me, and my son came home from track practice, and we were sitting there. Our corners are tough.
Oh yeah.
Trent and Tim Lamons were as physical as corners as we have. You don't realize until you go back and watch tape. We'll talk about, but the Clear Lake game, they were on option to Tim Lamons' side, to our sideline. This guy comes out to block Tim, and Tim lights him up and tackles the pitch man like for a 3-yard loss. It was a big time in the game. And it was absolutely incredible. But the highest I see Smitty jump since the '91 season. It was absolutely incredible.
Trent, didn't Timmy play with a torn up knee?
Yeah, he was missing MCL during
that's
that.
right.
So I thought, yeah.
he was huge in that Clear Lake game.
Yeah, he was. He played physical football.
Yeah.
He, and Trent, you're the same way. I think Trent, you moved to maybe safety when Eric broke his hand for maybe one game or something. Didn't you?
Yep.
And so, but I tell you what, the physicalness of that team is incredible.
And it's nice having a 6'6" safety back there intercepting
Yeah.
7
Yeah.
passes.
Yeah, that maybe helped too when you
Yeah.
got somebody covering you every day.
Yeah.
And he just had an incredible sense for the ball.
That's
How
right.
many picks? 7 that season?
7 that year, yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That speaks for itself.
And we're going to go game by game.
We
right?
are,
But that
yeah.
was
Oh,
Myers
yeah.
game playoffs. That
Oh,
pick,
yeah.
That was
Yep.
it.
Well,
And I want to say something, too, about Nick Crone. Unbelievable linebacker. He's always on my side as Meester Crone. I mean, kind of this edge unit.
Yep.
He was unbelievable, really dependable, reliable, which when people say that, sometimes it's like this kind of negative thing, like he didn't make plays, but he made plays, too. He made big-time plays.
Yep.
And something that was so undervalued, or, something I haven't, said out loud before is, when you're a two-way player, I don't get to go to the sideline and kind of hear those adjustments and things that are going on. Nick Crone would come tell me.
Coach on the field. Yeah.
Quickly,
Yep.
this and that, got it.
Yeah.
And then we're off and running. So
Valuable stuff.
We've been blessed with so many good athletes, but we've been blessed with more kids that are just so schooled of the game and understand how to play the game and what we expect of them. And they make themselves way better than they are athletic-wise. Maybe so they don't even maybe belong out on that field, but they're there and they're good because they put themselves in the right place at the right time.
he was a huge help to me very quickly, and it became not even nonverbal at some point during the season. Do little hand signals like that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And then Tom was the opposite. He just yelled the whole time.
The last part of that starting lineup, we got to talk about the managers. Paul Jennings and Chaz Hagan were the managers that year. Two guys, again, two very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Paul's one of those ones, boy. You moved something wrong, the wrong place. It was not where it's supposed to be. He'd chew you out and move it back. And
He carried on that tradition.
Oh yeah,
He really did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Wonderful job.
only people that have been involved with coaching know how valuable the managers are like those.
Absolutely. That's why they're on here, Coach.
Yeah.
They are valuable.
We got a couple good ones now too. Carter Iwan, but we'll move on. Let's talk about the games one by one. A lot of things to talk about, and a lot of things to reminisce on here. Started game one, went over to Rock Valley Boyden Hall, and ended up winning that game 12-6. Again, a game. They're a pretty good ball team that year. There's no doubt about it. Travis Koima was their quarterback. Travis, a guy that never beat me. He can listen to it. So
You never mentioned that before.
He did go to Northwestern, and he never beat me there either. So
Any conversation that goes to Travis Koima always starts off that way. That's okay. Are you listening out there, Travis?
Well, he's pretty good with the pocket. But that didn't happen this game.
no,
Or at USF.
I do believe we beat them maybe a little worse than the score when you look at it statistically. I thought we did, but
Did they have a ball bounce around and get caught too, like at the end of the half or something like that?
Could be. I don't know.
boy, that
Like in the end zone, like that was one of the touchdowns.
is that one of the touchdowns?
That was
they
their
had?
touchdown, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so.
It bounced
Could be.
around and
yeah, I think you're right.
I'm looking at the article. All I can read is it says Tom Meester knocked Koima woozy on a second down incompletion.
And there was a lot of that. When we needed a big sack, there was our front lineman, or a big play. They came through.
Yeah, that was a hard-fought game. I remember the second half, we all started falling with cramps.
Oh, okay.
A few of us
yes,
in
we did.
the secondary, so a lot of guys had to step up and cover us for a series.
That's right.
My jersey after that game it was like yellow.
yeah.
It was nasty. I remember taking that home. It was just from my body sweating that much. It was terrible.
Our early season.
What's that?
I tore my AC joint in my shoulder that game.
Oh.
And I remember the physical therapist, Matt, was training over me, like, get him away from me. Coach Grant, let's go this way. Because I didn't want to miss. And
You don't want
I
to
knew
go out.
it was
You don't want
bad.
to go out. That's right.
Yeah.
But the real story is the purple pants, obviously.
Yeah.
We need a podcast. How do the purple pants show up?
I don't know. I must have watched
You got
somebody
upsold?
I must have watched somebody on TV the week before and just said, "Hey, that'd be kind of cool. Let's put some of those on."
You want to know the story? A little bit of story about those purple pants, Trent?
I do, actually, because
Do you know what our freshmen were for practice?
the purple
The same
pants.
ones.
They're
The
so
same ones.
Same years later,
Same ones.
freshmen are still wearing them for
Best dang
practice.
pants I ever bought. Those things are indestructible.
What I really remember though is you were disgusted with them kind of after the
Well,
game.
that's because they're like look like plums. They weren't like Minnesota Viking purple.
No.
They were like, I don't know. Some
They
weird,
I was a kid. You invented
Some-
color rush.
yeah.
They looked stupid, and I wrote in my notes after purple pants, stupid, and then I got thinking some other stupid things that I thought were stupid. When we went all white out, I thought that was stupid. When Toby took over as the head coach, and at the end of the game, we start this new chant, I love football, I love football, I love football, yeah, and I thought that was stupid. So I wasn't always right, because some of those things are pretty dang cool, and Toby started a tradition there that will never die with our chant.
I don't know if I can
as our-
take credit for that. I think that might be Travis Drakey that maybe came up with that one.
Well,
I can't
whoever it
remember
was,
right
I just
offhand.
thought, oh God, a bunch
Yeah.
of cheerleaders. What is the deal? But it is a cool tradition that our fans take hold of. So sometimes stupid ends up okay. Is the moral of the
Well, that's
story?
me. Why are you looking at me like that?
Well, I'm just telling
you really
you.
looked at me though.
Trent, I just really thought you guys needed some swag, so we got an extra pair of pants.
I actually didn't mind it, but I remember you were just so disgusted with it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like
But
it.
we're still wearing
after
them.
after we'd spent a couple thousand, I didn't like it, so I just couldn't say much.
Then we go on to the West Line game. End up getting beat at home. West Line ended up going on to win 2H state championship that year. They were a good ball team. There's
Yeah,
no
they
doubt about
were
it.
just flat out good.
Again, we're not going to spend any time in that game, but we'll move on. Started district play. One thing we can say as the seniors, at least this year, do you realize that the seniors never lost a district football game? And I started my sophomore year, but as a group, we never lost a district 3A district football game, and so it's pretty special.
If you go back to that West Line game, that Monday after when we watched film, that was the only time I've ever we watched film after a loss. That was it. Yeah. And I was sitting there going, well, this is different because we're getting our butts chewed because it's like we never lost.
And rightfully so. We deserved it. We didn't play very well. No. But, it was one of those deals.
And we played this early season, this first half season schedule was tough.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Tough.
We're going to go on to
schedule.
the Spencer game. Spencer that year was predicted with Lamar's to win the district. And we come out of there 8-0. And that's where I go back to what Trent said, or I think Coach mentioned it earlier, but we was at home, and Trent and I wore like gold and purple socks because we thought we were really special. And so we came out there and we ended up winning 8-0. And Mr. Grant gave me a little bit of a heads up going into the coaches meeting. He's like, "Hey, you don't want to do that again." I'm like, "Oh, what's the big deal?" And we got to the meeting on Monday. Boy, we never wore it again, did we, Trent?
No. Like I said, I'm glad you wore it with me. I would have been probably cut.
But you know what? That was one of the things I look back on, even as a captain. You look at leadership roles and you realize you take that part of the season. Those little bit of things make you a better person, make you a better captain, make you aware of more than the situation that's there. And so, again, a lot of credit to the coaching staff. At the time, we needed it probably, and it ended up being a good thing for us.
Who were our captains then that year, Curtis?
Trent and I, Josh, and Eric Clevengo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great leadership once again. That's pretty obvious.
Another thing I remember about that Spencer game is that's where we started to implement Justin as a runner for us big time. I remember you had some key first down pickups in that. We went on fourth down and it was a close game, and we went for it, and he became a lot better runner for us as that game progressed from there on out.
Throughout the season, Justin, and reading through the articles and thinking back and watching some tapes and all that, you must have had 30 to 40 fourth and short, third and short, big, strong, get the first downs.
Yep.
Huge plays. And the offensive line started to gel, make things happen. But those were right along with the defense making the big sack or the big recovery. We got big conversions on third and fourth downs.
I was going to mention the same thing. A lot of quarterback sneaks on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Obviously, teams knew by then to key on Curtis, so a lot of it, probably half of those, was a fake handoff to Curtis and just keeping it up the gap there. So
Yeah.
That game, Josh drew us, our sophomore, the big dude, 6'3", 6'4", 230 pound. He sprained his ankle.
230 pound, maybe when he was in fifth grade.
330. Sorry.
Yeah. Flip those around. 325 pounds.
My bad. Yeah, good catch. Good catch.
Yeah.
Yes, 330-pound
Yeah.
sophomore. He actually sprained his ankle that game, and Josh Cruz stepped in and started that game for us. And Jeff and I had to ask Jeff in the office. I go, "Your brother Josh started that game." He goes, "No, he didn't." I go, "No, it says in the paper he started that." He goes, "I'm calling him." So I won't read what Josh actually sent back to Jeff, but it was actually pretty funny. But
Yeah, that's a big
but
deal.
that was a big win at that time
a big
for
deal.
us to get going in the district. And so I think after that game,
A shutout too, right?
It was
Yep.
8-0. That game was 8-0, and so very battle of a game defensively. A lot of bend but don't break. They drove the ball down and did an excellent job. Our defense did an excellent job of holding them. So going into the Lamar's game, I think that was actually the game that we moved we moved Trent from tailback to wide receiver, and
we had a big catch early on, I believe, in that game.
And so, that again, something that we at the time defensively we absolutely played lights out. It ended up I believe the score was 20-13, but the score was definitely not as close as
There
the
were
game
some
was.
fumbles and offensive territory type stuff.
Yeah.
I think that kind of inflated that score.
I remember Coach Schmidt saying, "Here's the deal. They got backs with little hands. I want you to hit them as hard as you can every time. No matter where they're at on the field, hit them."
Yep. Carlton Hector, quarterback.
The
Scary kid.
best thing about Lamar's week is Coach Schmidt pretended to be Carlton Hector in practice. He would start juking and jiving. Clevy, I think it was. He like, "Clevy, come get me." And he's juking and jiving. Clevy, stops and chops his feet, and he runs around. "I'm gone, touchdown." They start doing this, and we're doing this loop, and Clevy kind of gets closer and then closer, and then he kind of touches him. He's like, "Nope, gone." Next time, and Clevy, Tim, and I are looking at us. We're kind of, "Oh shit, I think you're gonna have to tackle this guy." And he did. Smith rolls on the ground, gets up. All right, next drill. We start jogging down the field.
Classic.
Roger Smitty classic there. But yeah, their quarterback is Carlton Hector.
Yeah. What a brilliant athlete.
Man,
Holy cow.
extremely smooth athlete.
They
But,
were loaded with good athletes.
Yeah, they
that
were.
team was.
And I just looked at in my notes here. We had in that Spencer game we had 15 first downs. In this game we had 15 first downs. Justin, I wrote in here, Justin converts tons of third and fourth shorts. I think there was at least a half dozen of them. So we were moving the chains offensively, which is just enough that we needed to do to complement that defense. Yeah. And through it all, our quarterback just kept getting better and better. Curtis kept doing his thing, and that offensive line just kept getting better and better.
that game, cool. You look at stats in that game, Justin was 6 for 8 for 73 yards in that game. I remember it was Brad Reichman had a big catch across the middle in that game.
Yep.
Trent caught one over his shoulder in that game. Some huge pass plays. Like I said, going back and looking back, our pass game was really, really good.
Yep.
If I remember right, Josh, didn't you stuff somebody on a third or fourth down? I remember on that one. That was a key third or fourth. They were driving and you stuffed one.
I know in Spencer I did down by the
maybe
goal
it was-
line.
okay,
I don't
maybe it was
remember
Kurt.
Lamar's.
Okay.
And Toby, I got to tell you this. This is what sold me on being out there in the wide out position. The crack box.
Oh, yeah.
Just get full head of steam. Just go at linebackers. I got a lot of protective equipment on. They don't see me coming. This is awesome.
We did.
I got to do a lot of that. Yeah. That was all. Then started in the Lamar's game. That was fun.
Yeah, see? Can't do it no more now. It's illegal now.
We knew
football.
after that game that if we kept playing right, we were going to be playing them again, which we'll talk about in a little bit here.
It was that was a huge game. I mean, going into that, in my mind, this is it. This is kind of litmus test where we're at. Are we that 3-6 they said they think we are, or is it? We're going to end that right here.
Yeah,
I think that's where we bought in, where we were going to be going on. We
Yep.
just have to keep doing our business and.
Yep.
Moving on, we come back and we come home for homecoming against Storm Lake.
In the snow.
In the snow, that's right.
Oh, that was miserable. Oh.
Homecoming.
That was awesome.
Well, I say it was miserable because I was at that, I was the FFA advisor for years, and we're cooking burgers in the snow all afternoon, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this already. But for our style of play, it was perfect. It was perfect against the team we were playing. It was perfect.
It was early, maybe into September.
Yeah, in September.
Yeah, it was an early one.
October when we had that snow.
Yeah.
I don't think we had school that day. Central Lyon at least didn't. I don't think we had school today because I remember being at home helping my dad out in the field, and we were trying to combine, and it started snowing.
Could be.
But, coming home, I mean, that Storm Lake game, again, just powered football. Defense played outstanding, obviously shut them out again.
You know, we always beat Storm Lake, but we struggle with them because we didn't know anything about them. We never ever saw them except for those varsity games, 2 or 3 games we ever played them too. So it was always kind of a struggle. They were always a 6-2 team. We were able to run our off tackle stuff at them, but they were always a hard target to beat. It
was one of them games where there wasn't much room for error. You would get your 3rd and 4th and shorts, but you had to convert them to beat those guys. And they were tough kids, tough dudes.
Looks like we had, as I was reading that, we had people sitting out that game. We had 3 or 4
yes,
people
we did.
sit out.
I think that's what I played
big
safety.
injuries.
Brother played for you.
Yeah.
It was just like a quarter, though.
Yeah.
There was a lot of us that were just banged up from the Mars game.
And still played. And, big win. Once again, a tough opponent. But 13 first downs, 58 offensive plays. The week before, 15 first downs, 59 offensive plays. So we're doing what we need to do to win offensively, let alone what the defense is doing, of course.
Yeah, that Storm Lake game, we had 280 yards of offense, and they ended up having 98 yards total. So, I mean, again, we can talk about the defense day in and day. I mean, we relied on our defense to make plays, to keep us in the ball games, keep games tight, and hopefully win it when we needed to. And so, again, unbelievable. And I think that game, Danny Schoenman actually came back, which we'll talk later on here, and the impact he made from the kicking standpoint, some backup roles for Danny. But which leads us into the ELC game. In this game, we ended up winning 20-7 at Esterville, but we played really bad.
Sluggish. I remember just being really
slow start.
sluggish.
I think we had 7-0 at halftime. And I remember
But they came out real quick in the second half and scored? No.
We were down 7-0.
We were down.
down 7-0.
Because I actually thought this is – I think you're going to remember this. Remember? They got a penalty for halftime.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of like –
Their band stayed on the field too long. We got a penalty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I remember that kind of got us going a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Like it kind of rallied.
So the band stayed on the field too far.
Yeah.
Yep.
15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty. Coach Sven Berkum and I were all over the officials on that, baby. Look at the clock. They're not even running it. It just ran out. There they were. They went and the refs watched it, and they walked right over to the announcer's stand, and it was a 15-yarder right off the bat. Good job, Coach. We had that, baby.
I just remember that second half. You had some key completions. I remember Brad diving on a couple across the middle.
The big one to get going was
Trent
Trent hitting him down the sideline for about a 40-yarder. That was the first touchdown of the game for us.
That's right.
So earlier in that drive, Trent caught a ball along their sideline, and unbelievable, like one way, and then he turns around midway and turns around, catches the other way, just going out of bounds. And that was like a 30-yard gain. And then we turn around like 3 plays later and throw it a 40-some-yard pass, the completion of Trent in the end zone. And the kid wasn't in bad coverage. It was just a perfect throw, perfect catch. Everything was – and that really, I felt like, again, they stopped our run game consistently.
51 carries for 185 yards, and you look at the stat line. Yeah, they did, Curtis. We averaged well under 4 yards a carry, but 16 first downs, 65 offensive plays. Making the plays when we needed to, moving the chains.
Yeah, and playing,
playing great defense.
Great defense that second half.
Big win over a former CL coach,
Yeah,
Jerry
that's
Schultz.
right. Jerry Schultz, yeah.
They were tough.
Yeah.
You keep talking about completions. I know we might talk about stats at the end. I just want to make sure I get this in. Because I looked at it, it's like 44 completions. It seems so low. But you want to know what? You take 5 you put all those completions in a basket. You take 5 of them out, and those are incompletes. That might be 3 losses for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Right.
tons of you
Yes.
in the flat. Like they were
Brad
all
Reipkema had
yeah.
several huge catches
the-
at tight end.
Hasselman.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
I mean,
the big
it's like
one,
they were
yeah.
so important during that
They
season.
were when we threw
Yeah.
the ball.
It
we
was
completed
meaningful.
it,
Right.
and it was a big play at that time. And that, like I said, I mentioned that earlier. It definitely was that way. So coming back, it was a big win for us. Again, we grew a little bit more throughout that time, and then we come home again to Cherokee. End up beating them 38-10. They had a fullback that was a monster. The kid ended up going to the NFL, I believe, and playing for the Chargers for a couple of years. He was.
But they were throwing the ball out.
They
weren't
were.
They
They were throwing
It's
the
like-
ball.
It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, didn't make sense at all. But
Yeah.
they, it was, we beat them up front so bad.
Yeah.
That was an offensive game. I mean, obviously putting up 38 points, but and that's when Justin and I, we started running a lot of 12 and 18 reads.
Yep.
And then after that, it was like we were on the same page. And we ran, I bet after that, of the 300 run plays we ran, 260 of them were 12 and 18 reads.
Yeah.
It was just all read. It was hand me, take it, go underneath.
Did you think it took a while for you and Justin to kind of figure out the rhythm? And
It did. The start of the year, first of all, he's an underclassman. We didn't play together. And then offensively, we're trying to figure out the line. I mean, just a lot of things. And we never got things rolling. And so this is like the first game we put up big points and a lot of yards.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me early on in the season was just how quick Curtis was to the line of scrimmage.
He, as fullback, Curtis was
there.
there quicker probably than any fullback, any of our great fullbacks.
So I knew I had to get that snap, and I had to get there. I had to meet him to the spot.
Yeah.
But you're right. We had that option game going. We haven't talked much about Justin Meyer, but I tell you what, he was as dependable as they come as a tailback.
Sure was.
Yeah.
Worked hard. It didn't matter if it was a quick pitch or I was even 5-10 yards downfield at times. I remember if I had to pitch it, Justin Meyer was going to be there in the right spot.
They allude to that several times with late pitches for big plays.
Yeah, and we're one of the few programs for a long time there that really relied on our tailbacks to do a lot of blocking too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you fake the fullback and that tailback's out leading around the corner there too on that, and he did a good job of that. Also, you're right.
59 rushes for 321 yards, 21 first downs, and 68 offensive plays. That's CLGLR football, boys.
Yeah, like I said, that was the one that for me it was. Again, I feel like it was like the repeat of the 96 season when we talked about how many guys here, the coaches talk about, they have McDonald's.
Yeah.
They have a Hardee's.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know why we wanted to beat them so bad, but when you heard it, you wanted to kill them. Like, it was like go time, right? Like it didn't matter if you're going to Lamar's or if you went to Cherokee or whatever. They were bigger. And they were better.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the coaches could get you on board with that. And that, I tell you what, that was a lot of fun playing.
You
those
guys just ate that stuff up.
We did.
It was the funnest, easiest motivation ever. It really was. It was fun. These were fun times with some tough, good football players. And we're right in the middle of it here. Moving to Spirit Lake?
Yeah, moving on. We got Spirit Lake game. Went over to Spirit Lake. Again, they had a big old fullback linebacker.
Yeah, Hinkledye kid.
Hinkledye,
He ended up playing at North Dakota or North Dakota State. Yeah.
Ended up beating them 42-14.
Yeah,
just absolutely destroyed
Yeah,
them.
Kurt and I have talked about this game before. You were hurt. I
pulled my groin that week.
muscle. I wasn't planning on playing him. I was going, we'll play him a little bit here. We'll see how it goes. And then all of a sudden they give you the ball and you go like, I don't know how far you go. You have 2 or 3 runs of like 40 and 60 or whatever, and so he's like, we'll leave him in for a little bit, see how it goes. And
so I didn't play, and neither one other starter in that game we didn't start. I think Wyatt Stubbe didn't start.
Yeah.
Wyatt and I didn't start the game, and they went down and scored. And Schmitty came up to me right after that. He goes, "You ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I told you I was ready to begin with." He goes, "Oh, that's it. You're going in." And Wyatt goes, "I'm going in with them." And so Wyatt and I went back in after that.
I remember you thinking you weren't going to play. You had like 3 shirts on.
Yeah.
And you come over to the sidelines first time, take a shirt off. Next one was next time.
Just giving hints.
Multiple layer changes there.
Team 53 rushes for 483 yards. Curtis, 24 of them for 308 yards. Pretty much says it all.
We played those 3A teams, and we're the little dudes, we're the little towns and this and that, but they always seem like the team that I always wanted to beat the worst because they always had that big time.
Yeah,
they always seemed like they always tried to act more big time than everybody else we played.
That game, I remember it going into halftime actually. You came up and told me, you have 298 yards, you're done. I said, "Oh, Coach, one play." I go, "One play after halftime." You're like, "No, you're done." I go, "Just give me one play." You're like, "All right." You talked me into it. And I end up going out there, and I get tripped up by the safety by a shoestring. Otherwise, it would have went like 70 or 80 yards.
Yep.
And I was so mad. And after that, you gave me the big eyes, and you're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yep, all right, I'm out
As
here."
it was, you set the school record that game.
And I did, yeah. I ended up setting the school record with 308 yards.
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't compared to Roger Meyer's 300 yards against Webster City in the playoffs, but at that time it was a big win for us. And,
Oh, yeah. If I remember right, Bogey, that was that one where you came down on a special teams play and decided you were going to jump up in the air and get flipped up about 3 circles into the air.
Bogey gets pushed up, gets bench pressed standing up. Got a holding call, come back.
We talk about motivation and stuff for games like this for Spirit Lake, and I'll never forget. And I share this story too. I always remember before we play Spirit Lake, I remember all the coaches would be like, "All right, we're playing Spirit Lake. You're out here working hard in the sun. You're working hard." And you go, "You know what they're doing? They're riding jet skis. They're drinking beer. They're not working."
we like jet skis.
And then we're all out there going, "Yeah, let's do it." In the back of my head, and I'm like, that kind of sounds kind of fun. Riding jet skis, drinking beer, hanging out with girls and stuff. I'm like, come on, right? But I always remember that they're like, I'm like, kind of sounds fun in a way, right? I mean, come on.
And I've got to say this before we move into the playoff games. What separated Curtis as a fullback from the other great fullbacks we've mentioned, and they truly were great, but Curtis could break one from anywhere at any time. And this, as the season progressed, he started scoring on more and more long run plays, and part of it was you guys were meshing and the line was really working it. But he could score at any time and became an incredible threat as a fullback. And that's a rare quality. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, Justin, about hitting that hole quick. The line was adjusting, you were adjusting, and pretty soon we're hitting things.
Well, whereas RJ was, we talked about RJ going into the pile and
moving the pile. Yeah,
he never even let himself get into the pile. He would avoid the pile and get going deep and get going and.
He was kind of an oversized tailback with tailback speed playing at fullback.
I was going to say more of a tweener, but it just worked out with how the offense was.
And I agree. Like it was, but a lot of credit to our offensive line. They matured and grew.
Oh, absolutely.
So much that year. Those underclassmen did. They really started to shine. I thought, Wade obviously is coming back, but I thought Sam and Derek and Josh.
Yeah.
And Josh drew us. Obviously, they just matured and every game got better and better. You start learning these guys. You run. We said in practice we would run 17 and 13. 18 times a practice.
Yeah.
Like you start learning where
against
they're
some
block.
good kids.
Learning how they're going to block, what they're going to do, understand it. And it took that many reps to get there. And so, now we run one dive and the kids are complaining, "Oh, it's boring. It's boring." Yeah. So it's definitely a different type of game. But
if you make Jeff watch the Spencer game, does he just vomit all over himself?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different type of football, but moving on.
Trent, you said you wouldn't bring up vomit, so don't talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get there. I'm going to get that in yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not letting you get by that easy.
We'll move on to the last regular season game. It was MOC. We went to Orange City that night to play MOC, and if I remember right, we got there and they were good. They were a decent ball team. They had that Brink kid to Brink.
Yeah, good kid.
Played at Iowa State.
He played at Iowa State. Matt Stange, Clayton Doohan, two guys that played with us up at USF. Trent. So they had a good ball team, but they couldn't make the playoffs. And I remember going up there and we're warming up, we're getting ready, and they're out there kicking like 50-yard field goals, like the line is, the tailback. I mean, everybody's out there just goofing around the whole time. And I remember Tope comes up to me, he goes, "That's an unfocused football team, and we're going to take care of that unfocused football team." And I was like, "Yep." And start to finish, we did. That was just I thought every aspect. Our return game was outstanding that game. Our defense, obviously, we won 28-0, played outstanding. Wyatt and Nate just completely owned the middle. Like they could not be blocked. I don't know I don't know how many tackles I had because I feel like I didn't have very many because our front four completely owned. I think Justin had an interception in that one.
Started working the quick pass game to try and
Yeah.
get that game.
Well, we had a terrific passing game along with 309 yards rushing.
Yeah.
So it speaks for itself too.
They benched a corner because I kept catching the ball. That made me feel very good. And they got kicked in the balls.
We ran like a stop pattern, like 5 plays in a row.
Yes.
We just kept running it. And Trent just kept
I was
catching
so
it.
tired.
So he just kept.
I
It was
told
like boom, boom, throwing out, boom. 5 plays in a row, and I'm like, are you guys gonna adjust, or are you just gonna let us go down the field?
I told Justin the last, like, the 5th one they called, like, don't throw him at the ball. I was like, don't.
You were 7 of 9 that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
5 of them were you?
Well, and half of them are straight out to Trent. Yeah.
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 Well, I ran 2 patterns. One, I just stood there, and the other one, I just ran fast.
But I've never laughed or smiled so much in that game because you two in particular were quite chippy with the MOC guys.
We were
that you
very
knew.
chippy, yeah.
Yeah, there was no love. There was absolutely
Oh,
no
no.
love with those guys.
But you're right. They were athletic, and we embarrassed them.
We did.
We did.
It was.
I don't know who it was, but I remember somebody laid out Tim Tabrink and said, "Good luck at Iowa State." And so I stood over top of him. I don't know who it was, but I remember somebody saying that. Oh.
And that game was our 26th consecutive 3A district win. 26 in a row since the time they beat us that one time.
Yep.
We ended up 27-1 in 3A district football. That is simply incredible.
I'm kind of thinking about, like, why we always bring it so hard to them. I think it's because we lost to them. You know, I was in the stands as a freshman.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe one of those things that we always really got up for that game, and they weren't
Yep.
caring, and that kind of pissed us off.
Yeah.
I think it's
You're right.
partly because of what I said last week.
We just Sioux County. That's all we're gonna say.
Yep.
Got to leave Hayward out of there though. Jason gets a little.
Yeah.
You know, got to protect Jason a little bit. But you know that win obviously brought us into the playoffs. First round we came back and we had Lamar's first round in the playoffs. Again, another just dogfight of a play. 13-7.
Justin Overman
Yeah.
Yes.
took
Yep.
over that ball game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They came out and swinging gate. I
Yeah.
call it Daffy Duck or
All
whatever.
kinds of weird stuff.
They
Whole
came
first
out-
quarter.
Yeah, and all of a
Okay.
sudden they line up.
Okay, so I got to do this. We line up, and Schmidt's got Bathke out by himself out there trying to guard him. And he's trying to chase Carlton Hector around. So then, you know, we got all these great athletes on the field. Who do we put out there and chase him down and shuts him down totally? Nate Robb, done.
Well, I was
Nate
out there
Robb,
by
done.
myself. I didn't want to let him get by and break contain because he was scoring a touchdown.
Yep.
Hey, Josh, I love you to death, but you weren't ever going to catch him.
Hey, you're right. I wasn't.
Oh, no, that was something that happened. Like, they came out in that formation, and the crazy part about it, and I say this, like, we ran swing gate in practice, and so we lined up correctly right away. We didn't call timeout. We lined up correctly. Guys knew what they were doing. Carlton did run around a little bit to begin with, and then the next time out, we're like, well, if they come out and Smitty made the call, we flipped and put Nate Robb out there, and Nate Robb is just as fast, just as quick as Carlton is, and it literally blew their mind, you know. And then later on they ran it and they did the old double pass.
Right.
Yep.
And I watched that today. If Justin doesn't pick it, the other 5 guys out of there are going to pick it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it is absolutely covered to a T.
Yep.
Because Nate Robb is covering literally 3 guys every play. Like, it doesn't matter who has the ball, where they throw it, he's just running after them. It was just incredible.
Was it their first drive where they went all the way down the field on us, and that's when Justin picked it off to go? I
Inside
remember
the 10,
you
yep.
looked at them. That took everything out of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, they drove all the way. They got it down the field on us, 80-some yards. Like,
Yep.
it was hard on them. And then that happened, and you could just see, like, just their
Yep.
looks on their faces, like, holy
You're
crap.
exactly right.
You know, that game, I actually did block a little bit. I tried, but their defensive end kept taking me out at the knees, and I was getting so mad at him because every time I went to block, he just took me out. And I remember one time I kneed him to the head or whatever. Well, I ended up being a future teammate of mine, Kyle Dreckman. I never let him live that down. That he was a pussy. Like, he never wanted to take it on.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, I was getting so mad. And number 1, I'm like, dude, you wore number 1 and you're so soft. But I'll never forget it.
The other play that's got to be discussed, I think Nate Robb jumped off sides.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was
So pissed.
And,
so
and
pissed.
the
So
next
And
play.
we're looking around, we're like,
I've
we're
never
gonna see a
seen
dead
I've never
body
seen
next play.
anybody just like completely ready to lose it. Like completely, I'm gonna kill you.
But by the way, that might be the only time of Schmidt's coaching career that he didn't take the guy out when they jumped outside.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You jumped outside. You were going.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I wouldn't want to pick that guy.
But the very next play, he gets
Forced a fumble,
he's
right?
forced a fumble and recovers it.
Yeah.
So I
Turns the game around.
So I watched that. I watched
Curtis
that
and I
play.
talked about it today.
And actually, at the time, Lamar's ran a midline option, so they did not block the D tackle, thinking, well, they couldn't block Nate anyway.
No.
So, like, why block him? We're going to run midline, leave him go. We're going to fake to the fullback, and Carlton's going to keep it on an option. They flash fake it, and Nate goes around the fullback, grabs Carlton by the back of the jersey, and as he's trying to pitch it, hits the ball out, takes him, throws his head in the dirt, and reaches for the ball and pulls it in and recovers it.
Just
it was
phenomenal.
Absolutely one of the most incredible, most athletic things.
It was. It was.
It's like it's incredible. To go back and look at that and see what happened there on the goal line.
Man, it's crazy.
One of the dozens of plays from that front four. All four of them guys.
Tom Meester was nasty in that game, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, he was given license to kill Hector.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Schmitty was very clear. I mean, hit him often, hit him as hard as you
Oh,
can
I know.
the entire game, and I think he took it to heart.
Yeah, Tom's like, I
Exactly
didn't know who
right.
had the ball. I didn't know who had the ball. Like every play, each other. I didn't know who had the ball. It's like,
Yep.
it's like I had to go defend the kid.
And once again, I got written here, many big third and fourth down conversions. 61 rushing plays for 298 yards, slightly under 5 yards a carry. We just kept hammering and hammering, and we kept playing defense and defense, CLGLR football. So that's what we became awfully proud of.
They only had 67 yards rushing.
Yeah.
And it's just
And to
again,
beat that team twice in a season is a huge accomplishment. They were a good outfit.
No, Wyatt Stubbe played outstanding in that game, too. He didn't make the play like Nate Robb did, but Wyatt ended up with like 13 or 15 tackles or something that game on the other side. I mean, Nate and Wyatt completely owned it. And Matt, nobody's getting outside of Matt Sharp. There wasn't a guy on their team fast enough, too, so it didn't matter. Like, that D-line was so easy to play behind because they were just, they did it all. It was so fun.
It was such an interesting combination of skill sets because you kind of had the lengthy, the short, quick, the long field runner. It was, I think, just a nice combination of skill sets along that line.
Coach, before we move in the Clear Lake game here, tell me a Wyatt Stubbe story.
Which one you
The
want me to
rope.
talk about? Oh, the rope. Well, when he was in this shows you the kind of talent, the talent and the athletic ability. Wyatt Stubbe, when he was in fifth grade, fourth grade, or whatever, we had the rope and that goes to the ceiling that they can't have anymore or whatever, and we had kids in the elementary climbing the rope, and the kids were getting halfway up and doing that. Wyatt jumps up, goes upside down, climbs all the way up to the top of the ceiling, hits his feet on the top of the ceiling, and slides all the way back down.
Wow.
Fourth grade or so. Yeah.
And you wonder why he could play that kind of D tackle.
That was that's
Not big. Actually, our defensive ends were like somebody said earlier, prototype Schmitty.
Oh, yeah.
They had good size, incredible speed, but they were disciplined, number one, right, Matt? It took. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I gave you credit for that, Matt. You did make my job
It was honestly a wonderful front four to watch.
We've been raving about Nate with Just Cause, but Wyatt, like I said, Wyatt, the year before he got to play, it was Stubbe the year before, I mean, he was kind of the unsung guy there, the one that came to work with his lunch pail and got after it every day, but he was incredibly quick and incredibly strong.
Yeah.
I'm good.
We'll go into the obviously Clear Lake game at home. This is another state. There's quite a few state rules that have been established out of the Central Line George Little Rock era because of Central Line George Little Rock, and this would be the second one. The third
Oh man,
one,
were
maybe.
they mad?
The year before in '98, we played Clear Lake at home. Turn around, and we were in the program. I don't know exact terms, but we were in the program in the state by Central Line George Little Rock Rabbits, and so we were in front of Clear Lake because of CE. And then next year,
I think it was Rock Rapids, Central Line, George.
yeah. And then the next year we went Rock Rapids, Central Line, George Little Rock. And
That's
so,
how they determined.
And they determined it by alphabetical.
Yeah.
And that's why we went back-to-back years at home.
Yeah.
And guess what the state did after that? That didn't happen anymore.
No. Their coach was like the Harlan coaches. He just spent half the night bitching about having to come over here until he walked off the field and they got their butts kicked because of it.
And he was still complaining about it when we went to a coach's clinic the next year.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of listening to it, and he starts talking about it. Schmitty gets up and gives him one of these and walks out of the room. Walks right out of the room.
The Schmitty wave. You're done.
I love it. Yeah, and they were a terrific good football team.
End up winning that game 13-6.
Tough team.
13-6, and guess how many rushing touchdowns we had?
No.
Zero.
Two
We had
big passes.
0 rushing touchdowns.
2 fourth and long touchdown
Yeah.
passes.
Yep.
The first one to Trent.
Oh yeah, that was
It was
huge.
like 4th and 15.
Fourth
Yeah,
and
it was 4th
15.
and 15. It was we called MOC game the hit with Troy Metzger. I call that Clear Lake game the catch.
Yeah.
Because Trent literally crawls up the guy's back, reaches over top kind of, and pulls it in. It was
Yeah.
the most incredible reception.
Can we say I jumped over his back? Sounds a little better.
Everybody would know I lied if I said that.
All right, it was a crawl. It was a crawl.
And Jeff gets the only catch of his career, correct?
Oh.
And so anyway, about that, and correct me if I'm wrong a little bit here, but so Jeff's mom, Becky, passes away earlier that week or the week before, if I'm not mistaken. And I should have looked this up a little bit more, but and so a loss for Jeff, and Jeff comes out and plays, and again it was a 4th down situation.
Yep.
And Jeff goes and runs a route, and he kind of slips off the guy, or maybe pushes him down, or whatever you want to say, but ends up wide open. Justin finds him, hits him, 20-yard touchdown pass, and that was on Jeff Hassman's birthday.
Yep.
Yep.
It was on his birthday. His mom passed away, and it's his only catch of his high school career.
Yep.
And won this football game.
Yeah.
And so
you think you'll ever forget it?
No, no.
And let's make sure we recognize our quarterback on both of those passes.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely where it needed to be.
Yeah.
When that quarterback needed to make plays for Central Line George Little Rock, he made plays.
There's been a lot of very intense games, but that Clear Lake game might have been one of the most intense games at that point.
I'd like to know your thoughts on this. Do you think they kind of got away from what they did best in that second half?
Oh
like
yeah,
too early.
we totally took them out of it.
They found themselves in like deep water or something, got uncomfortable and started stop doing the things that they typically did.
If I remember right, we took some chances down there early on and got some first downs or whatever, and just kind of took them out. And they got a little panicky and just started doing things that were way out of their character, because they were known as a huge running team, and we just kind of got them out of their game.
Yeah, their fullback was a
to,
dude too,
like
right?
He went to
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
big time.
I think he went to
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, big time.
Big physical fullback. They had a number 9,
He
a
was-
running back that was a big kid. That
Yeah.
they had the complete package. And again, our defense, we bent, and we didn't break. And we held them. And it was like, multiple times throughout that game that big plays came up, and just what a fun game to win at home. It was a battle.
2 years in a row.
Incredible
2
atmosphere.
years in a row. It was 2 years in a row. That the second one was a little funner than the first one, but we got kicked their butt the first one. But I tell you what, that was again for us to win. Took a lot of things for us to get
All
it
time.
done.
But the catch by Trent though was
I would agree.
was
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah.
I mean
You
that
got
was
that right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I should get that printed on a T-shirt next time I come to town.
Everybody's gonna know about it now.
Actually, when I graduated, I had a bunch of people give me that picture. Actually,
Did you?
Cards, yeah.
Yeah, I can believe it because it was in the paper. It's actually printed right here in the newspaper article.
Let's see if that's a crawl.
Well, you're
Kind of a crawl in a fall, really. I rolled off.
yeah. Well, he ran forward. You kind of fell off.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that
there we
time.
go.
Okay. No, and so what a big win at home, which brought us into the which got us to the Dome, and first time back to the Dome since '96. Again, a lot of us guys were freshmen that year in '96, so no experience
Got
going
beat in
in.
the semis the year before in '98.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
Dome.
sorry, yeah,
Yep.
'98. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, good call, Toby. So yeah, we were back. So maybe that was a big thing that helped us. But played a JSPC team, ended up winning that one 10-8.
They had a monster tight end. I remember
Monster
a huge
tight
tight
end.
end.
But that game, I was texting back and forth with people, but that game, the unsung hero of that game, Danny Schoeneman.
Yep.
Danny Schoeneman, for making the field goal number 1, but on both kickoffs, they actually broke our kickoff, and he was the last guy. Otherwise, they were returned. He had 2 open field tackles. I mean, we're talking middle of the field, 40-yard line, one-on-one with the return guy. And
Oh,
Danny,
yeah, that's
and,
right.
and Danny tackles him. It was absolutely the most incredible thing.
Yeah.
Just, again, one of those things you think, you look back on, maybe you take it for granted, I guess, but
Yeah.
those are game changers.
Right.
Complete game changers. And so what a crazy game.
What a fun day that day, and the way that ended up with them kicking that field goal, and Nate Robb I think took care of traffic, and Curtis was able to come in and get a block on that.
So what was the plan there, Curtis? What was the pre-play plan?
The crazy part about it is this is the egos that that were not on our team. You know, when we talked about we going up, we you know, it was short time. You know, they ran a play, and the play before Matt Shar and Tom, Matt grabs a guy, the quarterback, and they're trying to throw. He's rolling out. Matt grabs him, and Tom comes up and hits him late too, and the guy just barely gets it off. He doesn't get that play off. Game's over. The game's over. Mm-hmm. And so he gets the ball off, and there's like 6 seconds left now, and so they come out and kick, and I told Nate and Tom East. So Nate literally sacrificed doing what he had to do, and the guy just completely took the guy out, and I literally walked through. And so yeah, I'm the hero, but it's like it was Nate and Tom, those guys that literally took care of the 2 guys that literally opened up the sea for it to happen, and you know, blocked it. I remember blocking that kick, and I was telling Coach Cruz this today in the office. I blocked the kick. And I was so excited. I got up and I started running to our sideline. I got about halfway to our sideline. I was like, oh, it's still a live ball. I turned around and I just started sprinting to the corner of the end zone. And it's one of those things you don't think about. You know, it's like Coach and I were like, Coach Cruz and I were talking. We're like, it's probably something we probably should talk to the kids about down the road here. Like, that happens. Like, you got to finish a play. Like, I blocked it. I'm running off the sideline. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, no, it's still a live play. But, you know, ended up Nate didn't give up on it. Nate took after, and actually I think ended up tackling the guy on the play. But, again, what a play.
Since 1990, without a doubt, if you had to pick 5 or 6 plays, that one would be there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Because it was the game. It was the deal.
Here's the things that I remember from the game. You know, everybody remembers the big moments. And, you know, I remember they were driving. And I think there was like 48 seconds left to go in the game. And they hit the tight end across the middle for a big game. And Schmitty calls a timeout. They call a timeout or whatever, and we're sitting there, and Schmitty's in the huddle, and he goes, they're going to go back to the tight end. I go, Coach Schmidt, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of him. Coach Schmidt's like, oh. I go, they're going to go back to him. I got him. I'm going to take care of him. Don't worry about Coach Schmidt. He's like, all right, Brian, line up. And so I'm on the tight end. Guess what happens? They complete the pass down the 5-yard line to the tight end.
Yep.
I never felt so bad in my life. Not only letting down Coach Schmidt, but letting down the team. Everything that happened. Because I lined up, and the tight end goes, he's a stand-up tight end, 17, big dude. And the guy goes, don't throw it to me. Don't throw it to me. He's lined up on me. Don't throw it to me. And so, of course, I read into that too much, and so I bail on him. And he completes it and down the 4-yard line. Yep. But I tell you what, that's the thing that I remember most about that game, because I just felt like I'd completely let everybody down at that time. But obviously made up for the next play. But
you're being humble, Curtis. You had the long touchdown run.
Yeah.
The pylon early in the game. That was huge.
Yeah, no, it was a big game. That was fun.
I just remember being gassed at the end of that game. Everybody on the defense.
That was
gassed.
just a defensive brawl. It was a pair of defensive squads that just knocked the crap out of each other.
Again, I think that was one of those games where we had very few guys going both ways, and they had a lot of guys going both ways.
Yeah, no doubt.
But, you know, another thing that's looking at some of the stats here, but Justin Overman had 4 punts in the game, and he averaged 44 yards a punt.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Big field position.
Big deal in defensive struggles, that's for sure.
Know, again, that was
Was
something.
that the game you had the 80? Was that the championship game you had the 84-yard punt?
I think there was a 65-yarder.
65
Well, I
yarder.
remember it was 80. Let's go 84.
It felt like 80.
Every year.
I'll take 80.
Yeah. Coffin kick from 90 yards out.
Yeah.
I was game. I was ready for it, Trent. I was with you. I'm like, I'm okay. If Justin
Like the hang time was 2 seconds, but the roll time was like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I believe it was 65. It was a long.
Was that this game too, Justin?
I believe it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, huge field position stuff that happened.
Yep.
Throughout that game. So, but you know, then moving into the obviously the state championship game. You know, a game that we just didn't play very well. They played pretty well, but one of those deals. You know, I'm not sure the better team won, but I'm not sure in '96 the better team won either. So
I think
I
think we play them. You know, 10 times. We win. Probably a majority, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe 5.
Really,
they were tough.
That game hurt me in a lot of ways. as a head coach with Central Line George Little Rock, but that really hurt me is that kid, the guy that coached for New Hampton, was a senior when I was a sophomore in high school, and I hated his guts at Lamar's. And he's always got that over me for the rest of my life now, and I can't. Every time I see him, it's like turn the other way.
All I think about that is that pick, and I tripped.
Yeah.
There was nothing in front of me. I just could not
Yep.
stay on my feet.
Yep.
Yeah, we had opportunities in that game. But again, it's one of those deals.
Yes.
You get to that level, and you got to play your best.
Absolutely,
at
yeah.
all levels. And
Yeah.
maybe we just didn't perform our best. But what a year. Going back throughout that
Yep.
year and reminiscing and talking about it. It was a fun run. It absolutely was incredible.
Yeah. Started a prediction at 3-6.
Yeah.
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 And an extraordinarily tough schedule, and coming out with win after win after win. Everybody making plays. Big people. What do you say, Tobe? Big people make big plays in big times.
Big players make big plays
Just
in
think
big
of,
games.
and you can't do it justice thinking how many big plays were made defensively. The big pick, the big fumble recovery, but the big tackle for loss. So many times I read in here these articles where somebody got a big sack. They had to punt the ball away. Just time after time after time, it was big play by big people in big times. And that was defensively and of course, offensively. It was a special, special season.
I'll take over here for a second for Kurt because he doesn't want to toot his own horn, but he's got a lot of things he should be proud of with this team that he was involved with. But just kind of the end of the season review, just some numbers for you. And Trent, I know you were looking for some things here. Our team rushed for 3,106 yards. Curtis had 258 attempts for 1,546 yards, 5.9 average. I believe towards the end of the season you had about a 3-game streak there where you had 600 and some yards, if I remember reading
Did you
right.
say 1,560 yards?
1,546 yards,
Wow.
5.9 average. You talked about big plays. He makes big plays. Justin had 108 attempts for 698 yards passing, 6.4 average. Justin Meyer, who we always, kind of an unsung guy. Justin Meyer, 97 attempts for 411 yards rushing, 4.2 average. Our team had 37 receptions. Trent talked about that, how most of them were key receptions throughout the year for 487 yards receiving. Kurt had 15 receptions for 162 yards. Our team was 42 for 82 throwing, averaged 17.3 points per game. Defense, obviously the backbone of our team. Defense gave up 72 total points, 5.5 points per game. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Because the 17
is-
points per game offensively is nothing to write home about.
No, and that just shows you how
Right.
good that defense was. 5.5 points per game, good God. Led in tackles by Curtis with 173 tackles. Nate Robb had 119, and Josh Bathke had 114 tackles. Justin Overman had led our team with 7 interceptions. Nate Robinson led us in fumble recoveries with 3, and Tom Meester led us in sacks with 7, probably 27, but they counted 7 of them there. All district players, 13 all district players on this team, which is incredible. And all the so much fun. I don't know if you ever went, Dewey, but when I go to the all district meetings, oh my, those 3A all district meetings were the most fun I've ever had in my life. All the big boys sitting at these table here, and I walk in at Central Line George Little Rock, and we walk out with a king's ransom of number of people.
4 years in a row.
Yeah, Wade DeGroat, all district players, Wade DeGroat, Brad Reicham, Curtis Evans, Sam Huff, Trent Herda, Wyatt Stubbe, Nate Robb, Josh Bathke, Justin Overman, Tim Lamons, Tom Meester, Matt Shar, and Eric Cleveringa. So amazing group of people there. All state players. Curtis was first team Des Moines Register, first team Iowa Newspaper Association, and Wyatt Stubbe was also first team Iowa Newspaper Association. Justin Overman was second team Iowa Newspaper Association as a junior. Wade DeGroat was Iowa Newspaper Association's second team also too. Some of our school records. Some of them have been eclipsed by now, but the career rushing, Curtis Evans 6th with 2,040 yards rushing. Our career pass receptions, Curtis Evans 8th with 17. Career pass completions, Justin Overman was 10th with 42. Career interceptions, Justin tied for 4th with 7. Career tackles, Curtis was 1st with 348 at that point. And our single game rushing yards, Curtis had 308, as we talked about, versus Spirit Lake. Before I turn it back over to Kurt, too, it is so cool as you read through that list of kids, the diverse group and how these guys, and we always are so proud, coaches. Terry's sitting here, and I don't know if Keith's here or not, but Dewey, and we talk about how proud we are of all these guys when they become adults.
Yep.
And just the diversity of this group. We got doctors. We got fighter pilot in the crew. We got teachers. We got coaches. We got businessmen. We got skilled laborers. We've got farmers.
We got head coaches.
So many productive adults, and so many adults, and all our teams like that. But this group had a really wide, diverse group of adults, and they've all done great in their careers, and we're so proud of them also.
Yeah.
So Kurt, you want to take back over from there?
Yeah, I'll finish off with that. I think that if we talk about the 99 team, is that you look at the it factor. As much as you talk about kids of today, I'm obviously a head coach, and when I see kids every day, you talk about the it factor of that will to win. I felt like we had a ton of guys on our team that just, no matter what, we're going to win. Never won in a game thought we were going to lose. I don't care what type of game it was, where it was at. We weren't going to lose. Mm-hmm. We had that attitude. We played that way. I don't ever remember bickering in the huddle, ever. Like, there was never that never happened.
Never happens with strong leadership.
We just defensively we may go play. It is what it is. Nobody yelled at each other. Yep. Get back up. Next.
No
man.
Offense versus defense.
No,
things like that. None of that.
And if something went wrong, that person corrected it themselves and made that next play.
Exactly. Yeah. That's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was never. That's what you look at the differences maybe of a team that's a district champion but doesn't get to the next round versus a team that wins it and gets to the finals or gets to where they need to be because of that it factor. And I just felt like this team had it, and it was for sure just one of those years. Now you go back and look, and it's been fun. 21 years ago.
Yeah.
Time flies.
It's crazy.
Time flies. Crazy. But overall, I appreciate you guys. I think we're running at an hour and a half here, so we're going to finish up. But first of all, I appreciate Trent coming down from Lawrence, Kansas. Coming up, I should say.
Yeah, came up last minute. My folks are out of town. Kegs at Mom's place. Keep the drywall on the studs. The Lupkuses know what I'm talking about.
We're all legal now, Trent.
Yeah, but we still want the drywall on the studs.
No, I tell you what, I had fun. And again, Justin and Josh coming down. So thank you guys. And Nick joined us from Ames. Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, guys. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I really wish I could come and tear up Trent's house, his parents' house, like the old days. But have a beer for me, all right?
It will do, buddy.
Yeah. No, thanks for the invite, Kurt. I mean, it's awesome living these memories, and obviously the season didn't end the way we all wanted to and hope. But you have a little perspective now. It's been 21 years, and you think about those good memories and the run we had, and 64 teams in the state. We got second. Yeah. I think we were the best team. Just didn't have it on the field that last game, and just good memories overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what we accomplished was we took a group of guys and we really made a team. I mean, there wasn't any really exceptional athletes. We just had a lot of really good guys.
Absolutely.
That played extremely well together.
I agree with you, John.
And when called upon, speaking to Danny Schoeneman, called upon they made these big plays that were very meaningful. Our margin of error was so small that entire season for most of those games.
It was, yes.
So, jumping off sides and having Nate Robb come back that next play, that probably wins us that football game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's every game there's part of that. We won a lot of games by a touchdown or less. Think of that, a touchdown or less, and we won games.
Mm-hmm. And I really go back to what I started with our JV season, because that's how we won football games is JV. Without Curtis on the team.
Yep.
Because we had to develop a chemistry then, because we really weren't going to be able to develop as a junior because not very many of us were playing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
That's right.
Makes a lot of sense.
So I appreciate everybody stopping in. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the episode 2. And
only one disappointment about that first podcast.
Okay.
We didn't end it right. Are we going to end this right now?
Well, how are we going to end this?
I love football.
Oh, we are. Okay.
I love football. Do you love football?
I love football.
Stupid.
Who's the third one?
I love football, yeah.
Yeah?
Are we
Let's do this for real.
We're going to do it all in one?
Everybody in the whole place.
Right? Hey, we're gonna do this right. We're gonna have everybody do it, not just people in the headset. So hey, Matt, you want to lead us? Here we go.
Oh, that wasn't very good.
We weren't ready. We weren't ready. Give us a
do it
countdown.
again.
Give us a countdown.
Matt, we gotta have a countdown. Like, here we go. 3, 2, 1. I love football. I love football. I love football.
Yeah, baby. Now that wasn't so bad.
I tell you what, I enjoyed doing it this time than the last time we did it, walking off that field in 99. So I know, Trent, I appreciate that.
Good idea.
It's a big difference, difference on that. So
just because Coach says it's stupid, it isn't a mistake.
again, remember next week, next Thursday night, we're gonna have the 2002. Rick Meyer, Chris Keel, Mike Klingenberg, Dan Bannersy as your guest. And so we will relive that year. There's some athletes on that team as we go through. So, again, hopefully you guys can tune in next Thursday night, same time. Little different crowd, but
I buy the first beer.
And Coach
My
Postman
wife said it's okay.
Coach Postman's got the first round again, so hopefully get you guys together. And then the last, we got 1991, the last Friday night, I believe we're gonna go. The last one, 91 Friday night to finish off the podcast year. So again, thanks everybody coming, and again, we'll see you next week.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about our podcast, as we are now available on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And of course, follow us on social. We are at CLGLR Football on Twitter and Instagram. Or you can contact us by emailing clglrfb@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and go Lions!